Growing up in the 70s, when we were sick, my mom would make this thing called an egg flip, which was like an egg beaten into warm milk, with sugar and cinnamon or whatever. And I guess depending on how sick you were, she might put a little nip of whiskey in it. And my mom was not a drinker, but the ones with whiskey in them were much tastier than ones without. So I don't know, I was 7 years old, I don't know if I had a toothache or whatever it was, but she made me an egg flip and I asked her, could I get one with a little bit of whiskey in it? And she never made them with whiskey again. Look at me now.
How the hell did we get here? Back in Louisville, back in Whiskeyland. Here on a press tour for Heaven Hill's 3 new grain-to-glass whiskeys. Walking by the river with my brother. Here on business together. You see, we have a family business. Something I want to explore. I've had other jobs in my life, but as far as my career goes, it's mostly been with my brother. And at this point, the only thing I really know.
If he ever comes knocking on my back door, you better hope I'm not home. 'Cause I'll shoot him down as quick as I can with the gun and a bullet and a broken heart. Oh, I'm a dangerous man.
During this trip, we visited the Bernheim Distillery in Louisville to meet Heaven Hill Master Distiller Connor O'Driscoll.
We mill, mash, ferment, and distill over 1.1 million pounds of grain every single day here. I grew up in Dublin, Ireland. They put an Irishman in charge of the whiskey. Yeah. Genius move. It was a solidly suburban upbringing. Very suburban, very standard 1970s, 1980s Ireland. But did spend a lot of time outdoors, not so much on farms, a little bit on farms, but I have a strong love for the outdoors. The mountain trip that's on the picture behind me, me and my buddies, we've been doing it for I think 22 years now, and there's always whiskey with us. And our whiskey is good, but it tastes so much better by a campfire at 12,000 feet. I've been in this business now for a little over 20 years, a little over 5 of those with Heaven Hill. And when I got into it because I thought it'd be fun. It turns out I was right. And it really has been. It's been so rewarding, so exciting, so fun to do all the cool stuff I've got to do. I was working at Angel's Envy, the other end of Main Street. Had been there about 18 months when Heaven Hill called to inquire if I'd be interested in this job. I said, I just made a big move. I like working for Bacardi. No thanks. And I hung up the phone, was like, oof, wrong answer. And I told my wife about it, and she worded it a little bit more strongly, but yeah, same thing, wrong answer. So luckily they called back the next day and were like, you sure? And I was like, we should talk. I'm in this because I love making whiskey. It's great. I have yet to get, 20 years in, I've yet to get tired of looking at a fermenter and seeing it bubbling and smelling that smell, and that's just cool.
The PR trip would start with a bus ride from the Hotel Distill in Louisville to visit an old friend in Bardstown, Kentucky. First stop, Mr. Tubbs for lunch and drinks provided by the lovable Newman Miller and his brother, Harrison Miller. Our first family business of this trip.
Well, how are you? Good to see you, man. We're happy to be back so soon. It's awesome. Who would have thought?
From the appetizer to the first drink, Mr. Tubbs sent me straight to my childhood. Newman has a special ability to bring worlds and people together. When describing our chicken course, he jokes about using chickens that only have one bad day. And we think that makes a real difference.
I actually think you can taste the difference, 100%. From the animals that are raised well, from a farm versus like factory farming, like that difference is really nice.
We finished our drinks with a glass of Heaven Hill bourbon. This amber-colored elixir was rich, luxurious, and the perfect period to our meal. With a bread pudding dessert and the last few sips of my old-fashioned, we pitched to Newman our idea to visit Japan with him for this show. He didn't hesitate for a second.
I never been.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Like Power Rangers. Japan.
Bernheim was going to be out of capacity. So we realized, oh crap, we need to build a distillery. Like we should have started yesterday. Put a presentation together, got a meeting with Max. He knows the business better than all of us put together.
This is Max Shapira, second generation owner of Heaven Hill.
I grew up in the business and heard whiskey talk, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
And he asked all the right questions, and maybe about 20 minutes into the meeting, he pushes his chair back, goes, I guess we need to build a new distillery. Okay.
Then we left Mr. Tubbs and hit the road to visit Heaven Hill Springs.
Remember, it is a construction site. We'll have high vis and hard hats for you. Watch for your stepping, don't trip over stuff, and ask as many questions as you want, take as many pictures as you want.
Upon arrival, I was blown away by the scale and its beauty. The construction has been underway since June of 2022, and they've made serious progress. Inside, we got suited up with hard hats and high-vis vests.
There's a nice glass of water if you need it.
Ready to go?
Yeah, I guess so. My dad would be so proud right now. That's what I keep thinking about.
When we decided to build Springs, and it was called Project Phoenix, and we called it Project Phoenix because the original Heaven Hill Springs, old Heaven Hill Springs distillery, burned down in '96. So here we are, rising from the ashes, Project Phoenix. We wanted a highly automated, well-designed, just state-of-the-art distillery that visitors could come through. I mean, that's important to note that this is not a visitor attraction that happens to make whiskey. It is a fully automated, state-of-the-art, high-volume craft distillery that visitors can come to.
I'm really excited with how it's coming together.
Touring Springs, you could see all the improvements they had made. The level of accessibility and the amount of space was incredible.
Bernheim was built in the 90s with 5 fermenters, and we now have 17, so it's just glommed on those 2 city blocks as much as you could. Whereas we had a 70-acre cornfield. We're like, all right, let's a little bit of elbow.
To see it come from like the meeting with Max to discussions with process engineers and architects to initial drawings to 3D models to getting ready to start up, it's been a really cool process. So I took my daughter to Springs, I don't know, it might have been a year ago, and she's walking through and was like really into it. So that was very gratifying. Obviously I've been part of the project since the get-go, but there's a huge team working on it, and we're walking through this huge construction site, and Sophie says, Dad, did you design all of this? And I'm like, I don't know how to lay bricks or build steel or any of that, but I had a hand in the process stuff. But to see her excitement about it, and for me to realize that she was excited about what I do was pretty gratifying. The joke is we want it as close to whiskey on, whiskey off as possible. Because the goal is always to make as consistently high quality whiskey as you can. Consistency means repeatability, and repeatability means as little variation as possible. So automation gets you that.
So what did you guys learn?
I don't know for sure.
I mean, it's so overwhelming, the amount of information.
I think we learned they're just doing a lot of cool stuff. I mean, it's like what you'd want to do if you could do it again. What are the cool things you would add? Efficiency, sustainability, accessibility to different parts.
The idea that it's like going to be 6 people at a time running it sort of blows my mind, to be honest. For good and bad, and I love it. It's sort of like, I don't know, it's amazing. I mean, it's crazy. That's where we are in the world where it's not. I just imagine, like, for whatever reason, I'm imagining like pioneer people making whiskey.
Like 50 people.
The idea it's like a hard hat and a button. It's sort of nuts.
Walking around the property had me wondering when this project would be done.
By the end of 24, we'll be bringing it online.
Back on the road, we headed towards the Heaven Hill Bourbon Experience for some much needed air conditioning. We even got to fill, label, and sign our own bottle of Heaven Hill Select Stock. Then off to a quick cocktail hour in honor of the new grain glass bottles. 3 different expressions.
A straight Kentucky bourbon with rye, straight Kentucky bourbon with wheat, and a high rye whiskey. I always say you can't make good whiskey from bad grain, so you need good grain to make great whiskey.
There we mingled and wondered what the inspiration was behind these new expressions.
Hey, we want to do something small, something unique. So let's really focus on these relationships with individuals, with families.
Heaven Hill is still family owned, and these 3 new bottles would collaborate with 2 other family owned businesses to source seed and to farm the grain, the Beck's family and the Peterson family.
All 3 companies, Beck's, Peterson Farms, and Heaven Hill, have been around for almost exactly the same amount of time. For a company of our size to be able to take a step back and focus on kind of where we came from and keep building those strong relationships.
So we are getting ready to get back on the bus. We're going to go to Cox's Creek, one of our newest warehouse sites just north of town, where I taste some this great glass whiskey, some straight from the barrel.
This is Heaven Hill's first big push into grain transparency, something 10 years in the making.
This project started about 10 years ago, and it was really a figment of our imagination. Why don't we try to do something where we control all elements of it? And that means the grain, that means the barrels, that means the production process, and we had to be able to bring all of that together. We look at a lot of whiskeys, a lot of different brands, and they're all great. This is just different than what those are, and we want on purpose to make sure that they were different. And so that's why we materially changed the mash bills for what our standard mash bill is.
Shapiro family have been passionate about making great American whiskey since 1935. So for me, who just loves making whiskey, to be able to be part of that, it's super rewarding.
The first rule of drinking whiskey is, are you enjoying what you're drinking? And there is no second rule.
Seminars, they used to ask you, what is bourbon? And now they're really resonate on things like these relationships with Peterson Farms and so on.
The family tradition, I mean, it's what we do. We love it. I tell people that 364 days out of the year, I like it. 2 days are kind of rough. But, you know, family businesses are a blessing and a curse. You cuss your brothers and then you love them. And the rewards far, far outweigh the challenges.
And many times my dad would bring home, I guess they were distributors, probably suppliers. They would be visiting and he would bring them and invite them into the house. My mother, a great cook, would prepare these large, lavish dinners. And I was in my room in our house, and over the course of the evening, I could hear people were laughing and talking, and just for an 8 or a 9-year-old, it sounded like everybody was having fun. I had no idea what they were talking about or anything, but I always remember all these people coming to our house, having a good time. Those early remembrances probably internally stayed with me a long time to make it even more appealing to want to come back to a business years and years later.
The food we had for dinner was exceptional. We actually got to meet up with Chef Noam of Mish Mish and talk about why quality ingredients matter. But first, I wanted to hear about how he got started.
When I first moved to Louisville, I was 21 and I went out to a bar. I didn't know anybody. And I ordered a PBR and a Jameson. And the bartender looked at me and said, "Where are you from?" And I said, Jim Beam. Can I have Jim Beam? She's like, "Okay, sure." And then I started drinking bourbon from that moment on. Yeah, I'm sorry. I moved to Louisville 2016, did some traveling afterwards, and then moved back in 2019. I was born in Israel and kind of south of Tel Aviv, and moved to Florida when I was 6. Growing up, I mean, my whole family was always in the kitchen. Like every Friday night, my family would probably have 15 to 25 people over at the house. So like extended family, family friends. My mom and dad generally cooked together like Thursday night into Friday. My dad, anytime would like grilling was involved, he'd be the one grilling out. And there would just be like a sea of different dishes on the table, different salads and vegetables and dips and things like that. And that was just kind of like the appetizer course. Food was just like always the center of like everything we did as a family.
Like a tear and dip?
Yeah. So break a piece. We all like to break bread.
Yes.
No cutting bread. And then we're just gonna grab a little, and it's a wipe.
Oh.
The translation is wipe.
What do you mean the translation?
Like in Hebrew, like you would say like ha-negiva, or like your wife. How good is your wife? You get judged on your wife.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
How was my wife?
Pretty good.
Really?
Not bad. Yeah.
Thank you. And then a pin.
Oh, yeah. Mommy.
That's good, right?
I didn't eat it yet.
That's meat. That's insane.
Get your hand in there, Justin.
That's pretty good.
It's in my face.
Whiskey is made from all natural ingredients: grain, yeast, water, wood for the barrels. Food that no one was cooking is made from like the highest quality natural ingredients, and like every part of that meal. I mean, that salad was fresh and crispy. The lamb was amazing. The dessert was delicious, and yeah, just he crushed it.
You know, it was just like a really cool opportunity to do a dinner in a rickhouse, have the scent of the bourbon in the barrels, and like feel a little lightheaded because there's definitely alcohol in the air. It felt pretty cool. You go to other cities, like, you know, I've spent time in Malibu, and it's like, there's no question on if the person driving a McLaren has millions of dollars, right? But Louisville is like, you know, you might see someone in like a beat up pickup truck, and then they walk out of it, and it's like, oh, that's Julian Van Winkle.
It's true. There are these whiskey families in Kentucky, and the ones I've met have been kind and humble. Heaven Hill now has its 3rd generation of family leadership.
That's the best part of the business. That's one of the most important things that actually got accomplished for all the time I've been in the business. So many privately owned, independent family businesses just have that difficulty for a variety of reasons of making another generation involved. They brought with them that passion, intelligence, desire to achieve something and to build on a platform that was already in pretty good shape.
I mean, bourbon is still only 35% of our business. And so we spend so much of our time working across the business and from the total enterprise perspective.
Bourbon, when we came to for 10 years, was it?
What percent was it?
20.
So it's up 13%.
Yeah.
I wondered what it was like for Max to get to work with his daughter Kate and son-in-law Alan.
Great thrill.
Sitting in Whiskeyland now, we asked what Whiskeyland meant to Bernard Peterson of Peterson Farms.
It's that relaxing spot that you sit, primarily with family, but with family and friends, I should say. and having those discussions that are basically irrelevant to the world, but they're important to them. Because as I used to say, I said, we're going to go down and we're going to solve the world's problems. Are we truly going to solve them? No. We're going to discuss them and find our best case scenario of them. And Whiskeyland and that relaxing atmosphere, that's where we're at. I love it.
A family business can be complicated. There's good and bad. In my case, I have my big brother, someone who not only pushes me to make better work, is a creative counterpart, and wants to grow a business together, but also a best friend and confidant, and the person I get to pour a whiskey with for life celebrations, large and small. I don't think you can recreate that easily. A myriad of factors have to line up. I think it's rare, and I know I'm lucky.
One of the reasons bourbon continues to grow is that, it is because it is authentic. I mean, you've got to work on making great whiskey, and it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes passion and dedication and all those things, and it shows up then when you taste it. And if you're taking time out of your busy day to stop and relax and enjoy a drink with someone, if all of that ethos is in the glass, it just makes the moment better.
My last question, I guess, would just be about maybe your childhood a little bit. I get, kind of going back.
All right, do you want the black humor on that one?
Yeah, well.
So neither of my parents drank, and they both died in their 50s. Let that be a lesson to you.
I didn't expect it to be that.
There you go. I'm Irish. We do this.
I'm a dangerous man.